Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about the best practices for credibility and originality. So we'll explore these things when we're using AI tools. These skills are crucial for producing high quality, trustworthy content in the age of AI. So let's start with strategies to ensure accuracy and credibility of AI generated content. So through review and fact checking, always verify information provided by AI. Understanding AI role model data, so we need to be aware of the data your AI tool was trained on. Regular monitoring and updating, we need to stay informed about updates to your AI writing tools. Remember, as the writer, you're responsible for the final content. AI is a tool, not a replacement for human judgment. One of the things that it's hard to write something if you're not an expert in it. So, for example, in one of my books, I'm not a dentist, so I wanted to write the scene from the perspective of somebody doing some dental work. And I didn't really know much about it, but I did send it to somebody that I knew was a dentist. And there were a few things that were a little bit weird. So they had to modify those, but they're things that you wouldn't pick up on if you're not an expert in the field. I'm an expert in material science and engineering, and especially polymer materials, biological interactions with polymer materials. So when it comes to those things, I know what I'm talking about. I can pull those things out really easily. But when it's something that you don't know about, it's really difficult. So you do need to verify. So one of the ways that I do that is I'll take some of the AI generated content, for example. Let's say it gives me a sentence and I want to know if that is a correct sentence. If that's correct, so I'll plug it into either Google or Google Scholar. And I'll say, all right, give me a reference citation that talks about this, especially like if it's a sentence that I don't understand what this is saying, or it's like too far outside of my expertise. I don't understand it very well. And so you'll be able to use that as a method. So if you do it that way, but then also, so looking at Google and Google Scholar, both of those. And another one would be to plug the same prompt into one or two additional AI writing models so that you can see what kind of response it gives you there. And then what I would do is not use Perplexity for those two, because what I would do is I'd take the three examples, I would plug it into Perplexity and say, make this content accurate and credible, and give me some reference citations that are going to justify what I'm saying. So that's one of the methods that you can use to verify the information that's provided if you do not know if that information is correct. So then there's also the concept of maintaining originality. So we need to avoid plagiarism. So use AI as a brainstorming tool and not necessarily a source for direct writing and so copying. So I don't usually use what it gives me. I use it as a springboard, especially like I showed you, to overcome brainstorming and writer's block and all that stuff. But I use it as a way to get things going. And once I've gotten started, then it's pretty easy to keep that momentum. But we do want to avoid plagiarism because you don't want to get sued. You don't want to have other problems with that. So there are plagiarism checkers that you can put, and you can plug all of your writing into. One of those is Grammarly, which we talked about. You can also have it rewrite it into its own words, or you can just say, okay, here's what it gave me, and I'm going to, here's the content that I received from ChatGPT, for example. And you say, okay, as I go through and revise this, I'm going to make sure that no more than 3 words in a row are ever going to be the original words that ChatGPT gave me. You could also plug in some of the sentences that you think don't sound, that sound like they're probably plagiarized. Just take those phrases and sentences and plug them straight into Google, and you'll be able to find what's going on, if it's been plagiarized or not. So we want also to balance AI assistance with human creativity, so we can let AI inspire us, but we need to add our own unique voice. So I did show you some ways to to enhance the voice that it gives you with all of the Ray Bradbury stuff that I showed you. But ultimately, it has a really generic, I always call it like a 6th grader wrote it. So it's like really generic. It doesn't go into the depth you would probably want if you're an expert in something. So, and then also will not have your voice. So make sure that anytime that you would prefer to have it say something different, then have it say something in a different way, something that's unique to the way that you speak. Even though you can train the language models with your own voice, it's nice to be able to have your own stuff out there. And you can see that without constraining it, AI will still give you some creative answers to things, but it will it's lacking in creativity. So you want to make sure that you are the one that's generating the ideas. And so if you've got like a super long prompt, I mean, ultimately that's my approach is that if I've given it a really long prompt, like let's say that one that I showed you where I plugged in like this whole page about microplastics, and I said, okay, I want you to plug it into this paragraph type of format. Once you've done that, like you've constrained it a lot. You've said you want the sentence to include this information, but only keep it in the context of microplastics, as I did in that situation. So anyway, so you want to be creative, and you can be creative and use AI, but that means you have to do a lot of the mental work. So maybe you're not doing as much writing work, or at least the starting to write work, but you can use it, like I said many times, you can use it as a really great brainstorming tool. So the next thing, rephrasing and restructuring. Always rework AI generated content to make it your own. So the goal is to use AI to enhance your writing and not replace your creativity. When it comes to rephrasing and restructuring, maybe you can, like what I showed you before, like let's rephrase these emails to make them more professional. But restructuring, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm writing something, but it can only be 250 words. So I say, okay, use information dense sentences and condense this down into, this pasted text, it's like 2 pages long, into 250 words. So if I say use information dense sentences, then that means it's going to include a lot more information. It'll feel more powerful, more like an expert. And in addition, because sometimes it'll soften what you say, make it sound more generic and less like you're an expert in something. So you want to catch all of that. You don't want to turn in AI writing that you haven't read before. But then also another addition that I throw into the prompts is I say, avoid using common words and phrases that are found in AI writing. And that tends to kind of use itself to beat itself. So anyway, the next point I want to make is, transparency in AI use. So transparency is key when using AI in writing. So disclosing AI use, be open about using AI tools in your writing process. I teach college at a university, and I tell my students they can use AI all they want, but I do want them to be transparent about it. And so I'll have them put the prompts that they use to get the content that they have. And I will call them out. I'm like, hey, this is something that you see in AI all the time. So I'm thinking AI wrote this. You need to smooth this over so it sounds more like you wrote this. I'm also explaining AI's role. So it's important to clarify how AI assisted in content creation. A lot of journals, when you publish, are asking you what AI source you used and how did you use it in writing this paper. So I'm going to continue this in another video.